Thing. I'm not. Feelings, nothing more than feelings.
Oh yeah. I cannot see Bruce feet. The internet will not see those little toes. This little piggy's just fine.
Okay, we need to back up some.
Good evening, YouTube viewers. Welcome to night 4 of the Sukkot John Costick series. We look forward to starting that here in just a moment, but just know the stream has started, and we'll be getting started with the presentation very shortly. Thank you.
King? All right, is it official? Start? Okay, I was waiting for the ovation to die down. Okay. All right. So tonight we're going to cover hopefully 2 letters, because neither one of them I have finished, and they're both short, so we can put them together in one talk. But we're going to talk about the Lamed and the Mem. Okay? And I told you last night that every Hebrew letter has a partner, and these 2 are partners. Okay? And you can see how they go together. We know Aleph Tav, and we did Vav Zayin the last 2 nights. They go together. And Lamed Mem are going to go together. Okay, Lamed Mem. They're in the middle of the alphabet. Lamed. It's the L sound. It's the Greek lambda. There's 21,570 of them in the Torah. It's moderate. It's not the most. It's not the least. The least is Tet. Okay? And the most is Yod. Lamed is the only letter that goes above the line. Okay? It sticks way up high. For whatever, I don't know why or what, but it does. There it is. Okay. Next. And a Lamed, one of the things that you can do with a Lamed is, if you see a Lamed in front of a word, it's a prefix for 2. And I don't know, yeah, you know the Jews have a toast, right? What do they say when they toast? L'chaim. La is the 2, to life. Chaim. Okay? Have you seen a Fiddler on the Roof? To life, l'chaim. Okay? Okay. Now this is kind of cool. I just picked a word that had this, a verse that had this word in it. Lord saw the wickedness of man was great on earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Here's the word heart. Here it is in the Hebrew. Notice, because you should know this now, it says thoughts of his heart. What do you do to make something possessive masculine? You put a vav at the end. And look over here. It's lev, levu. It's got a vav on the end. So it's his heart. Again, I don't speak, read, or understand Hebrew, but I'm learning just from observing, okay? It's like the Music Man. Remember the movie? He couldn't play any instruments, but he was teaching them. Okay, next. And so the word heart in Hebrew is lev. It's a lamed and a bet. Heart. Okay? Now watch this. We know the first word of the Torah is Bereshit. That's Genesis 1:1. In beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That word in beginning is Bereshit. And the first word of the Torah is Bereshit. The first letter is a bet. And it is an enlarged bet. We talked about this the other night, that some letters are extra big and some are extra small. There's one that's cut in half, and there's some that are written backwards. There's all kind of crazy things. So bet is the first letter of the Torah. By the way, anyone, without cheating, without peeking, anybody know what the last letter of the Bible is? He says D, he says N.
Well, we're talking about Revelation?
Yes, the noon.
For
Amen. Okay. So the first letter of the Bible is bet.
Oh, that's clever.
I know it is.
That's good.
Quit stealing my thunder.
Sorry. It's cool. Pick it up.
Yeah. The first letter of the Bible is a bet. The last letter of the Bible is a noon. So you have bet noon spells Ben, which is the Hebrew word for son. And Yeshua Jesus is the Son of God. And he claims that he is the first and the last. And the first and the last of the Bible is Ben. That was for free. I'm not charging you for that one because it's not really part of the talk. But that's the last free one you're getting tonight. Okay, so we got the first word of the Torah. First letter is a bet. The last letter of the Torah. Oh, went too late. I was going to have them guess on that one. No one would have got this one. Too late. They already saw it. Next. The last word of the Torah is Israel. And the last letter of the Torah is a lamed. So if the first letter is a bet, the last letter is a lamed. What's lamed bet spell? Lev. My stick's not working. So it's the heart. And the Torah is the heart of Elohim. Okay? The word heart, if you broke the things apart, the lamed, it means two in front, and bet stands for the sun, right? So the heart could be to the sun or for the sun. Okay. Now, the ancient picture, for those who are new, every Hebrew letter has a picture associated with it. This is actually ancient Hebrew. Also, every Hebrew letter has a number associated with it, okay? But the picture for lamed is a shepherd's crook. And if you have the shepherd's crook, you have the authority, right? You're the boss and over the dumb sheep. Sheep are dumb. Yes, unbelievable. Okay, so anytime you see lamed, you think of shepherd, shepherd staff, or authority. The word lamed is spelled lamed, mem, dalet. Mem, of course, is the M sound. Dalet is the D. You can see lamed, right? If you put the gematria values in and add it up, it comes to 74. which is divisible by 37. For those who, we didn't talk about it this week at all, but in past talks, 37 is God's number. He has it hidden everywhere, 37. And that's just such a, I don't want to say a weird number because it's God's number and I don't want to be struck by lightning, but as a mathematician, and you will confirm, strike him, God, he's confirming that the 37, it's prime, nothing's divisible, it's just, no one knows. Very unusual number, but he just dances with it. It's just all through. Very cool places. Yeah, it's his three, his complex unity. Some people call it Trinity. I don't. And 7 is his perfection, right? And you put them together. And I think maybe we'll try to squeeze this in just for his sake, because I like to do something mathematical to wow him. But, I was amazed when I just personally discovered all the 7s that he had woven into things, besides the ones that are where he says, and then he took 7 sheep and he took 7 whatever. When it actually said 7, okay, that's cool. But whenever you see hidden things, like Jesus on the cross, he uttered 7 things. There's not a verse that says, and Jesus uttered these 7 things. No, you have to study and read and realize, hey, he did 7 utterances. There were 7 people who protested that his crucifixion. Well, that's interesting. You dig through and you find, yes, there were 7 people who spoke up and said, no, hey, this guy's shouldn't be crucified. So those just amazed me. And then when I found the 37s, my head's exploding. As I've been studying deeper, I'm now discovering that his true number is 137, 137. And we have some examples later in the week. We'll show you.
And you'll say why later in the week.
I don't know why they are, but 137, well, the one, because he's one God, but he's 3 parts, 3 persons, and his 7. And 137 is like 37, it's prime, nothing goes into it, yet he just does incredible things with the number 137. It's almost like he left a fingerprint. I was here, God. Because no one is going to write stuff that works out to 137. All right, next. Lamed also is associated with learning. Okay, if you have the authority, you're teaching, right? It's not only just learning, but also teaching. Okay. And the word, go back one, because I think here, the word learn, oh, I didn't have it here. Next. Oh, well, just the word lamed, I think, might mean learn. And then this is the word for to teach, lamed. So they're very similar. So these are all the things that could represent lamed. Authority, shepherd staff, learning, and teaching. And the number 30 is the gematria value. Oh, here we have. Lamed is the 12th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And I told you its value is 30. For those who are completely unfamiliar with the gematria, Hebrew has 22 letters. The first 10 are numbered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then they jump their values. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 200, 300, 400. There's the values. Okay, and you've covered 22 letters there. And the Jews will use these letters as numbers. So if you want 300, 325, 300 is shin, 20 is kaf, 5 is hay. Shin, kaf, hay, 325. Okay? Now, but take note that lamed means authority. It's the 12th letter, and its gematria is 30. This is very important for what you're going to see next. Genesis 41:46. Now Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Notice, he doesn't get the authority until he's 30. Not a coincidence. Pretty cool, huh? Next. Saul was 30 years old when he began to reign.
That must be why, or the Chabad say that you have to be 30 to study some of the higher.
Yes. And you cannot even become a rabbi until you're 30, an official. So the Jews are following that even to today. But it's kind of cool that the authority and the power hits them when they're 30. David was 30 years old when he began to reign. Okay, I don't think these are all coincidences. When he began his ministry, Jesus himself was about 30 years of age. So Lamed is going to be tied into these. And we also see in Luke 2:42, and when he became 12, they went up there according to the custom of the feast. This is when they had all gone up to Jerusalem for Passover. Okay, Jesus was 12 years old. Then, after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. He's not 30. He's 12. And Lamed is the 12th letter. Ah. Yeah, that's cool. I'm going to charge you for that one. Quick, take up the offering. They like that. Okay, so there's 12. Let's see what else we got. And Jesus appointed 12 so that they would be with him and that they would and that they could send them out to preach and to have authority to cast out demons. Again, 12, Lamed, authority. Got it? Not a coincidence. Now here's another cool thing. Hi, Karen. Psalm 151, it says, praise the Lord, praise God in his sanctuary, praise him in his mighty expanse. If you notice, this verse has lots of lameds in it. Right? You got 2 here, and 2 there. And it's the word praise. And what is the word praise? Anyone in Hebrew? Halal. La la la, halal la la. Because whenever you praise, you use your tongue, right? And you're going to see the word tongue is lashon, also with an L, okay? And when we say hallelujah, halal, there's halal, there's praise. Hallelujah. Yah is short for Yahweh, right? That's God's name. So when you say hallelujah, praise God. Praise Yah.
A lot of Hebrew songs have la la la, la la la.
They do.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
La 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 la.
Mm-hmm. Deck the halls with boughs of holly.
That was to make us up, right?
Well, I was going to do Hey Jude, but then I realized that's nah. And that wasn't going to work. Okay, next. So here is that word halal. And look how they spell halal. Remember, there are no vowels in Hebrew. So here's the hey, lamed, halal. Okay? And you just have to know what vowel sounds to make. This I have not figured out yet. There are, and I don't follow them, around 500 AD, there were groups who started putting, rabbis came up with a system of putting little dots, vowel markings, nikud they call them, above and below the letters to help you know what vowel to use. But I figured, if God would have wanted us to have vowel markings, he would have given them to us, right? And he didn't, so I'm not putting them in. So praise, halal. The language of Hebrew is called Ivrit, and it's known as the Holy Tongue. The Holy Tongue, we know holy is Kodesh, and you put a hey in front of a word, that means the, so HaKodesh is the holy, and here's the word for tongue, Lashon. You should know some of these letters. That's the Lamed. There's a Shin. There's a Vav. We talked about Vav the other night. Vav will make the O sound. And there's the final Nun, Lashon. Lashon HaKodesh is the holy tongue. That's Hebrew. Now, watch this. There's a verse in Proverbs 18:21 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. So here's the entire verse. Here's death. Here's and. There's a vav. The vav is and. Here's chaim, life. Death and life. In. And here's tongue. Lashon. And there's the four letters. Lamed, Shin, Vav, Nun. Watch. And remember, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Lamed, we know, is the shepherd's crook. Next. Oh, sorry. Shin is the means the Hebrew word for tooth is shen. The ancient picture for shin is two teeth, and it is associated with destruction or destroying, because whenever you put something in your mouth, it gets destroyed. So whenever you see a shin in a word, think there's something to do with destruction. Satan, Satan, his name begins with a shin. Okay? Next, the Vav, we spent a whole hour and a half the other night talking about Vav. Vav is a hook or a nail, and Vav is used for the word and, right? Because tonight I had meatballs, va, macaroni and cheese, va, coleslaw, va, cake. Va, and. Get the picture? So Vav is an and, it's a connector. Next. Noon, we mentioned briefly last night, noon has two different shapes. But if you're new, don't worry, that's a noon. It's going to be green, it's noon, okay? Don't worry about which one I have on there. It's ancient picture. That's the ancient picture for noon. It's a sperm or a fish. And it represents life. Well, I can see why a sperm would represent life. A fish, if you want to call that a fish is always moving. Its tail is going up, down, up, down. It's moving. It's got life. Okay? In fact, look at the tail. What shape does that tail make? It's the letter N. That's why the N represents life. Okay? Noon. Next. Here's Lashon, and here's all its pictures. Next. Proverbs 18:21 said, death. That's the shin, destruction, death. Vav is and. Noon is life. The verse says death and life are in the power of the Lashon, or in the power of the tongue. The letters that make up the word tongue, Lashon, represent death and life. They don't seem to be as impressed.
Very cool.
They don't seem as impressed as I was.
That's the best thing he's shown all night.
That's pretty darn good.
That's really cool. That he literally hid inside the word letters that had those exact meanings.
Exactly.
In that exact
Please,
word.
here,
That's
take,
insane.
tell them.
It's insane. That was really good.
Thank you. I was good. I like it. All right,
You
we're
can
moving
charge
on.
me for that one. That was great.
We were all speechless.
Speechless, yes.
That was good.
Another place where we see lots of lameds is the beginning of his kingdom, back in Genesis 10. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel. You know, remember the Tower of Babel? Okay? And we're going to digress just a minute because it's kind of interesting. The whole idea of it was Nimrod was the bad guy in the Tower of Babel. And remember what he said? He said, let us make bricks and build a tower that goes up to the heavens so we can, anyone? Make a name for ourselves. So this is what Nimrod wanted to do. Let us make bricks and build a tower up to the heaven, not to give God glory, not to anything for God. It was for our own self. And God realized the just ridiculousness of trying to build a tower to the heavens. It just ain't going to happen, right? So he has to put a stop to it, and he comes down and he changes their language so no one can understand each other. What he did is he changed their tongue. And you see, Babel has more than one tongue, multiple tongue, la la, Babel. Or does it have, it has multiple bits, never mind. But it has the lamed in it, okay, the tongue. The reason it has two houses is because he took, he separated houses and everybody got their own tongue, each house. Now, that whole concept of let us make bricks. You know what you notice about bricks? Bricks are all the same, right? I just got back from the Soviet Union. No, there's no Soviet Union anymore, is there? I got back from Russia about 10 days ago. And I was in St. Petersburg, and I spent one day in the city, and the rest I spent way out, about half an hour out of town, where I was staying with friends. And they live in a big, high-rise apartment. It's boxy, it's gray, it looks very Soviet. And next to it is another one. And next to it on the other side is another one. And for miles and miles riding the bus to get out there, you just went past blocks and blocks of big, square, gray, ugly buildings. They even have a movie, it's a comedy, it's been around for 40 years now, but about this was during Soviet times, where the guy gets drunk.
See, that's exactly what I was thinking. How do you find your house?
Yes.
Because they're known for the heavy drink.
Yes. He got drunk and he stumbled onto the wrong train, and he got on in St. Petersburg, and he got off in Moscow, and he just walked down the street and went into the building, and he went into the apartment because he thought it was his, because they all look alike. And it ended up being a romantic comedy, whose ever apartment he went into, and then there was this fighting, but then they fell in love and got married. But you understand, it could happen in the Soviet Union because they all look alike. And that's communism, socialism, right? And their concept is, let us make bricks. We are all the same. We're all equal. And that's not what God wants. He tells us there are people who are rich, there are people who are poor. The poor are always going to be with us, right? You cannot make everybody equal. That's not what God wants or does. He made us all different. In fact, the opposite of a brick, if there's such a thing as an opposite of a brick, is a stone. And you know what? There are no two stones alike. God makes everything special. Man, communism, socialism, Satan, let us make bricks. So just keep that in mind when you're voting next month, next year. Lamed, next. Now, the Lamed is kind of special in that this is the letter that precedes the Lamed. It's the letter Kaf. Got it? And if I put a Vav on top of the Kaf, I get a Lamed. So Lamed is actually a Kaf and a Vav combined. Make sense? Okay. And remember the gematria values. Kaf is 20 and Vav is 6. So Lamed by itself is 30, but the parts that make up Lamed add up to 26. No problem? That's a Lamed. Okay, we got the point.
That's the point right there.
Now, Yahweh, this is God's name. This is not God's title, or this is his name, Yahweh, or Jehovah, however you want to pronounce it. It's a Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Yud is 10, Hey is 5, Vav is 6. We already said Vav is 6, and Hey is 5. Yahweh's name adds up to 10, 26. Okay? Lamed adds up to 26. And that's neat. Maybe not just by itself neat, but wait till we do more, and you'll go, well, that's neat. So both of those add up to 26. Here's the letter Aleph. This is the first letter of the alphabet, way up here, Aleph. And how do you make an Aleph? Aleph is actually made up of a Yod, and a Vav that humbles itself. Okay? In fact, we have some new people here, and I just want to explain. This Aleph, this is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, number 1, right? This is huge. This is God's letter. And its picture is Yod. Yod is the Hebrew word for hand. So here you have a hand. This is God's hand reaching down. And here you have a hand. This is man's hand reaching up. The problem is God's hand is perfect and holy, and man's hand is sinful and rotten. And the two cannot connect. God cannot be touching filthy, sinful hand. So how do these two connect? Well, what we do is we get a Vav. A Vav, remember this is not a Vav is straight up and down. And Vav, its picture is a nail. It's a connector. It connects things. A Vav is also an upright man. Vav is the 6th letter of the Bible, or the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Its number is 6. And we know man's number is 6. Man was created on day 6. We have a bad man coming someday, Antichrist. His number is 666. Man's number is 6. So you take a Vav, and this upright man humbles himself, and that connects the God's hand with man's hand. So that's a picture of this upright man who humbles himself is Jesus, Yeshua. He didn't have to come down and leave his throne and be tortured and punished and crucified, but he did. He humbled himself because he loved us. You see the picture? So the Aleph, although Aleph's value is 1 all by itself, the parts that make up an Aleph are Yod 10, and Vav 6, which add up to, again, 26. You figure God he's got his finger in everything. He comes up with 22 letters, and he's in those letters. You see? He's in the Lamed with the Kaf and the Vav, 26. He's in the Aleph. Okay, next. Now, if you have this, Aleph Lamed, what does Aleph Lamed spell? It spells L, like A-L, L. And El is short for Elohim. Elohim is God's title. Where do we see that? In Genesis 1:1. Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Elohim is the third word in the Bible. So El is the shortened version of Elohim. And how do you spell El? You spell it with Aleph Lamed. And who is El? Well, we can figure that out because Aleph is 26. And Lamed is 26. Every part of El points to Yahweh being El. Make sense? They seem to like that one better. A tough audience. All right, next. And we've talked about that the Lamed is followed by the Mem. Now, what is the next slide? Just for grins. Okay, go back because I guess we're still. Oh, you can leave it there. You can leave it there. Next one, yeah. Okay, I think that might conclude the Lamed. Thank you very much. So now we're moving to the Mem. Now, Mem is an interesting letter for if you know nothing about Hebrew, because Hebrew has something that other languages don't, and that is something called a final form. And we're going to just take a minute or two to explain final forms for those new tonight. And here's how it works. And here's Mem. There are two different shapes to Mem. If the Mem is at the beginning of a word or anywhere in the word, you use this Mem. If it's the last letter of a word, you use this Mem. So just imagine you got. Remember we saw a little bit ago with the noon. There were two different green noons, and I said, don't worry about, right, knowing the difference. They're equal in value. They have the same pronunciation. It's just if they show up as the last letter of a word, you use a different shape. Why? I don't have time to tell you. But just know that it does. And these have a name. They call them the Sophite letters, the ones that show up as the last. Mem, its ancient picture is this. Well, it's no surprise where we get the letter modern day Mem, right? It comes from there. And if you remember, the ancient Lamed looked like this. That's ancient Lamed. It's a shepherd's crook. It's no surprise where we get the modern day El. Right? Everything, God was first on everything. Mem represents water or chaos. And because if you notice water, it's always rolling and riling and turning and churning. There's chaos about water. Okay? And if you'll notice, even the shapes of these two letters, the Mem here, this is water in terms of rivers and streams. There's an opening where water can flow. And this is water like in lakes and ponds that are enclosed bodies. Got it? Okay. Mem is the Greek mu. I don't know any Greek. I haven't learned this yet. Zorba the Greek, that's it. And my college fraternity. What? No, I was in a culinary fraternity. Eta Beta Pi. Depending on the audience, I use that as the clean one. I have another one for a different crowd. Okay, next. The mem. Watch this. Here's a mem. We already talked about the cough. And the cough is actually, if you put a cough with a vav, you get a mem.
So you use those two to get a lamed or.
And others too.
That's cool.
It's very cool. His letters, almost all of them add up to 26 on some level. It's just really cool that you just knew Yahweh was there putting them together. Okay, so there's the mem. It's actually a cough and a vav. Pretty darn close. There's 25,000 mems in the Torah. You know what? I got no idea what this is, and I wrote it. But I wrote it a while ago. It is I am, and this is how you would say I am in the Eya, Assure Eya. I am that I am. This is 10, 21. 21. Maybe this will do this. Watch this. 8, 40, 50, 60, 73. 873? Is that what you got? 8, 40, 50, 60, 73. 873. Yeah, I don't know. What's going on?
There was something there.
There was something there when I wrote it. This talk I put together 6-8 months ago and haven't looked at it much since. Sorry. Okay, here's a cool word that begins with mem, and we know that mem represents water. The word flood is a mabul. And that you would expect in the word flood, there should be a mem, right? There should be some water in a flood. And if you take the letters and break it down, there's a lamed, which is learn, and man, house, and water. I don't know if you can put a message together on that. Noah's house, it would be a man. The ark was a man, his house. I don't know. But anyway, it's not a surprise that flood has mem in it. Next. We're going to go on again because I don't know what that's for. Well, we are talking about water, and we told you that mem represents water, and we're now going to tell you the Hebrew word for water. And the Hebrew word for water is mayim, which is a plural word. And here's mayim. It's spelled mem, yod, mem. That's the perfect word to teach you about those final forms, right? Because here you're seeing there's the regular mem, and that's the mem you use if it's the last letter of the word. And in Hebrew, anytime you have a word that ends with those two letters, yud, mem, that makes the word plural. We see this with a cherub. You know what a cherub is? A little angel, right? And a cherub is an angel, and then you have the cherubim. You've heard of that word, cherubim? That's Hebrew for angels, okay? You have a seraph, is a higher angel, and you have the seraphim, plural. Here's an interesting word, mayim. Mayim is a plural word, okay? I never think about water. Is it singular or plural? But to God, it seems plural. Here's one you wouldn't expect is panaim. Anyone know what panaim is? Panaim is the Hebrew word for face. And notice it's plural because your face is really never the same. You're either smiling or you twitching or it just changes all the time. And it's kind of cool that God wove that into the word panaim, that it's a plural word, because you don't have a face, you have faces. That's nice, you know. Remember, God's ways are above man's ways, like what? The heavens are above the earth, right? So when you get these, you go, oh yeah, you know, that actually does make sense if you stop and think about it. Point God, okay? Mayim is a plural word. Go back. Oh, no, it's coming up, what we have here. Watch. Oh, you're going to love this. I put this together on an airplane on a long flight to Singapore, I think it was. It was my flight to Singapore from San Francisco. So these next 15 slides were put together over the Pacific Ocean. Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his rod twice, and water came forth abundantly, and the congregation and their beasts drank. Let me give you some backstory. They're in the wilderness, all the Jews. They left Egypt, and they need water. And they all come grumbling to Moses again and said, we need water. And God tells Moses to take his rod and strike a rock. And water came out. And they drank. Then it was like 30-some years later, they're still in the wilderness wandering, and again they need water, and the people all come to Moses grumbling, and Moses asks the Lord, and God says, gather them all together and speak to the rock. Well, Moses was upset with the people because they're all grumbling for everything. And Moses is so upset that he took his rod and he struck the rock twice. Water came forth, everybody drank, but God was not happy. Why? Because God told Moses, speak to the rock the second time. And Moses messed up whatever God was planning. Well, first of all, he just disobeyed God, right? And Moses, if you remember, he was not allowed into the promised land. He spent 40 years wandering and trying to get to the promised land. And here, they're just so close. And that one little mistake, God said, nope, you're not going. The rest of them can go, but you disobeyed, you don't get to go. Wow, that seems like a really, really harsh punishment for such a minor, I don't want to say disobeying God is minor, but, okay, you get the picture, right? After wandering all those years. Well, here's the picture. The rock, and you're going to be wowed by what's coming. The rock is Jesus. And the rock has two visits. Yeshua, Jesus, he came the first time. He came the first time to be our suffering servant, to take care of our sin problem. He was beaten and he was whipped and he was crucified. He came to be our high priest and to take care of our sin. And that rock that followed them through the wilderness, it talks about that there was a rock that followed them through the wilderness, the Jews back in the Old Testament when they left Egypt. That rock was Jesus. So when God told Moses, strike the rock the first time, that's a picture of Jesus coming the first time, and he gets struck. But my friends, Jesus is coming back. And when he comes back, he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And you do not strike the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. When he comes back, you speak to him. La, 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 la. Right? You're going to speak to him. And so God was setting up this pattern, you see, way back in the Old Testament. The first time you strike, the second time you speak to. And when Moses, the second time, when he struck it twice, that messed up that real cute, pretty pattern that God was setting up. Are you good with the backstory? Okay. So this is that second time. Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his rod twice. Notice this is the second time. The word for rock is Selah. It's a Samek Lamed Ayin. There it is in the Hebrew. Moshe, Moses, Moshe. Here's the word water, Mayim, Mayim. Okay? For those new to my videos or new to my talks, this is kind of what we do. We'll highlight certain words in the Hebrew and in the English so you can just recognize them. All right?
That's not the same Selah that is
No.
in the Psalm.
No.
Let it go.
Right. Okay, so a Selah or Selah is a rock. There's my rock. And here's the word. It's a Samek. Samek, how do you spell the Samek is a letter, but it's also a word, Samek. How do you spell Samek? Samek mem kaf. See what I'm doing? Samek. That's how you spell Samek. Next is a Lamed. How do you spell Lamed? Lamed mem dalet. Next is an Ayin. How do you spell Ayin? Ayin, Yod, Nun. And it says that Moses took his rod. Let's go to the next one. Then Moses lifted up his hand and he struck the rock. Oh. He struck the rock with his rod twice. And when it broke apart, look what's left in the middle. You have two mems and a yod. You have mem 2 yod. Well, that's interesting. Mem 2 yod, that kind of looks like H2O. Right? You got two mems and a yod. So he's kind of even hid the chemical formula of water in the story and in the word rock and in, you understand? And I was over water. Actually, I stole it from somebody when I was on dry land. I just made the slides when I was over water. Oh, I steal all this stuff, you understand? This is none of my... No, yesterday I told you. What was the one that I did yesterday that actually came to me that I... Oh, it's the 10 Commandments and the first 10 letters, how each one paired up. Remember the seventh commandment in Zion? Shall we go into that more? And it's interesting, the mem 2 yod, if you have two mems and a yod, well, you got water. I like that. Okay, another thing that, well, last night we took care of the men. No. Mem also represents a woman's womb, okay? And you've got two kinds. You've got an open womb, and notice that kind of looks like a pregnant woman, right? It even has a birth canal here. And then you have a closed womb. Got it? All right. Next, watch this. There's the open womb. Okay, let's look at Isaiah 9, verses 6 and 7. You're going to love this. And by the way, in Hebrew, in the Hebrew Bible, verses 6 and 7 are not two separate verses. They are one big verse, and they call it verse 6, I think. But I think it is. But it's two verses, and we break into two. They call it one, verse 6. So here's verse 6, and you're about to see verse 7 after it, but remember, that's all one verse in Hebrew. You see this on the Christmas cards. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. Notice on that, just unto us a child is born, and a son is given. If he'd have switched those, would it have made a difference? Yeah. If a son was born and a child was given, that doesn't have the same. The son being given, that's God giving his son. And the child being born is the virgin birth. Putting those two together the way he did, it lets you know that there was going to be this divine son given, and he's going to be born as a human, as a child. That's nice. And the government will rest on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor. Those are two separate descriptions. He's not going to be called a wonderful counselor. That's important. Okay? This is Pele. Pele is this word wonderful. This is a little side note. But remember Samson? Samson's parents, they were praying for a child, and this angel came and said, you're going to have a son. And Samson's daddy said, well, tell us, what is your name so that we can thank you or worship you or make a fire or offering to you? And the angel said, why do you ask my name since it is Pele? Whoa. That's interesting. Why are you asking my name seeing that it's wonderful? And he used that word Pele. And in here, this son that's going to be given and this child is going to be born, his name will be called Pele. And that angel that visited Samson's parents, when he left, Samson's daddy said, you know what, that's it, we're going to die. And mom said, why? And he goes, because we've seen the face of God. We've seen God, and we're going to die. And she said, no, if he would have wanted us dead, he'd have killed us by now or something. You know. But the point is, that was God who came down, and his name was Pele. And here, this son that's going to be given is Pele. Counselor is another term. Mighty God. Well, that's El Gibor in Hebrew. El Gibor. I have round and round fights with my Jewish friends in Israel over this one. I said, how do you get around that? It says that this is a messianic prophecy. The Messiah is going to be called El Gibor. And they say, well, El Gibor doesn't mean mighty God. Well, what does it mean? You know? Ava and Jaja's sister or brother. Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. But I digress. Let's continue this verse. Remember, this is all one verse in Hebrew. There will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and uphold it with justice and righteousness, on and on. Okay, there will be no end to the increase. I want you to notice that phrase, to the increase. Next. Here it is in the Hebrew, to the increase. In Hebrew, it's lemarbe. Lemarbe is a lamed. You know that letter. A mem, a resh, a bet, and a hey. Lemarbe. Anybody see any problems? Right there. That is a closed mem. And where do we put closed mems? At the end of a word. This is the only time in the entire Bible that he has a closed mem inside of a word. And what do closed mems represent? A closed womb. And this child is going to be born, this son is going to be given out of a closed womb. It's pointing to the virgin birth. Okay. Well, you guys are ahead of me here because he used a mem and not a mem. You know, let's jump ahead a bit. What time is it? We're early still, right?
You got 7:48.
Oh, that's early. I've never finished this early.
No, you have not.
Never, ever. Okay. The end of my mem talk is not as sharp maybe as it should be. So instead of just finishing with this, let's jump ahead to another letter. Okay? But let's just go slow in case we do hit a slide that jumps out. Keep going. Keep going. Again. 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 That's kind of, mem represents the water, and water is the word, right? And because these two letters go together, lamed, remember, is learn the word and teach the word. So that's how those two are kind of hooked together. Okay? Next. And this is just for kind of fun. These three letters go right in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Kaf, lamed, mem. By the way, for those who are new tonight, Hebrew reads this way. I maybe should have told you that an hour ago. That is a final cough. Although I'll probably have another one before the night's over. This is a cough. Yes, here's cough, and that's a final cough.
So this is
Yes, here's the word melech. It's a mem, lamed, kaf. The word melech in Hebrew means king. Okay? Well, it's kind of interesting that those three letters spell king because it's an M, L, K.
Martin Luther King.
You know, and every time, I don't care what city you're driving through in America, you're driving along and you look up and there's MLK, and I just look at it and go, oh, king. It's the king. Because MLK is king, Melech. That's just my own little observation. Go ahead. Melech is king, next. Unless you're a flyer and it's KLM. And there's our pictures for each one. Let's jump ahead to the Samek. So you're going to have to go through the noons and get to the Sameks. There we go. You notice noon is a little sparse. Oh, you know, there was another. There's another cool thing with the mem. I have to put it in the mem talk. By the way, again, for those who are new, I put these talks together. I come here and try them out. And then I go back home and work out the bugs. And I go to other places and try them out and work out more bugs. And once they're really up and running and good, we film them and put them on YouTube. So if you're not familiar with my YouTube stuff, please type in my name, John Kostic, spell it correctly, Kostik. And there's lots and lots of videos. If you like this kind of study into the Hebrew, some are more alphabet related and some are more other related, but it's always good stuff. Okay, this is the letter Samek. Here it's down here. Its picture, I don't know what that is, but it represents an antenna. And its meaning means to support or to lean on is Samek. You know, it's interesting is he only has 22 letters, and he chose one of the letters to represent leaning or supporting. Okay? All right. Its value is 60. Remember, they go 1 through 10, then 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. support or lean on. Here's the first Samek in the Bible. This has got a mathematical twist to it, so you pay attention. When they were describing the Garden of Eden, it said that 4 rivers flowed out of the Garden of Eden. The name of the first is the Pishon. It flows around the whole land of Havilah where there is gold. The word around is sabab, and it means to go around or encircle. This is Genesis chapter 2. It's kind of clever for the first appearance of a Samek. And what do you notice about the shape of a Samek? It's round. And the first time it shows up is in a word, sabab, which means around. I get it. Good one. It gets better. Next. Okay. Here's Genesis chapter 1. And I told you there's no Samek there, right? The first Samek's not going to be until chapter 2. So in chapter 1, there's no Samek. He does talk about 7 days, does he not? On day 1, be light. Day 2, separates the water. Day 3, vegetation. Day 4, sun, moon, and stars. Day 5, birds and fish. Day 6, animals and man. Day 7, he rests. He actually enumerates 7 days. And he uses less than 22 letters. How many less? 1 less. He doesn't use a Samek. Okay? Next. In chapter 2, he uses all 22 letters, including the Samek there in Sabab. But in chapter 2, he doesn't enumerate the 7 days. Correct? He doesn't go on day 1 and day 2. But he kind of repeats a lot of this stuff. He planted a garden. He formed man. He made animals. It's kind of all the same things he did in chapter 1. He's just not putting them days named to them. Are you with me? So we got two different things. One of them, he used less than 22, and he had 7. And the other one, he used 22 letters, and he didn't have 7. This math man's already ahead of me. Next. And we know Samek is a circle. So here you have less than 22 over 7. And here you have 22 over not 7. And you know,
As soon as math geek sees 22 over 7, pi is the thing you think.
22 over 7, that's what we use as an estimate of pi, but it is an estimate because it's not exactly 22 over 7. It's actually a little bit less than 22 over 7 will give you pi. Or if you're going to use 22, you got to use not 7, not a little bit bigger than 7. You understand? So he's hidden, and it's in a word about a letter that's round.
And pi is about taking the roundness of a circle.
Yeah, the circumference divided by the diameter.
So it's all about circles.
Yeah.
Really cool.
So here he's hidden pi fractionally.
Don, you do that with a pumpkin, with the diameter circumference thing, what do you get?
Pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin pie?
There you go.
You interrupted me for that?
I'm sure that's the next slide.
Let me see. It's going to be. Next. Okay, now, here's another cool Samek thing. By the way, he's got pi hidden all through the Bible. And they're always in places that involve circles. Like sabab, to go around, it means the word to go around. The other one was on the laver. Remember the big thing where the priest would have to bathe before he went into the tabernacle? When he gives the dimensions of that, pi is all over it. It's so cool. But here's another cool thing. What is this? Leviticus 16:21 says, and Aaron is Moses' brother. He was the first high priest, okay? And if you remember high priest, what he had to do, we are now celebrating Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. The feast prior to this was 6-7 days ago. It was Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And on Yom Kippur, this is a once-a-year event. By the way,
That's a once every 2 hour event.
it was the I know.
Sometimes you gotta pop the tongue.
The meatballs and the
Free advertisement for your brother.
mm-hmm.
In order to next year, if you're gonna down them with chunks, I don't know that I'm gonna make it.
It was the meatloaf, not the meatballs. I'm not cursing at him.
Will's like, what did I do?
All right. Once a year on Yom Kippur, the high priest would take 2 goats. One of the goats he would sacrifice, take the blood, go into the tabernacle, go behind the veil, pour the blood on the mercy seat, and God would forgive Israel's sins for the year. The other goat was called the scapegoat. In Hebrew, it's the Azazel. And he would lean down on that goat, and he would push and press all the sins of Israel onto that goat. Then they would take that goat out into the wilderness to Mount Seir, far from the city, and leave it. And some say that they would actually kind of off of a cliff. They don't want that goat wandering back to the village months later, bringing all their crap back, all their sins, okay? So they're taking it out into the death area to die. And then God forgives. It's a clean year. Let's start again. Isn't that nice? Let's start again. It's a cycle, okay? By the way, you ever, in English we have, see, I'd like to digress on these things. It talks about we are supposed to walk in the paths of righteousness. Have you heard that expression? I don't care what translation you're using, they all say walk in the paths of righteousness. But if you look it up in the Hebrew, that word paths is not path. The word is cycle. Because we do these things every day or every week, and we screw up. But you know what? We're going to go again, and we can do better the next time, and the next time, and the next time. There is no path of righteousness. If there were, we'd all be on it, and no one would have any problems. You know, there's cycles, and we just get better at them as we go. Hopefully. Okay, so now you got an idea of what's happened on this holiday. And it will explain here, and Aaron shall lay both of his hands on the head of the live goat, that's the scapegoat, and confess over it all the iniquities of the sons of Israel and all their transgressions in regard to all their sins. So he's leaning, supporting himself on the head of this goat and pushing the sins on there. And if you look at it in the Hebrew, look what it says. Here's the word Aaron. And here is va, that's and, vasamek, Aaron, and lay Aaron, hands, on and on and on, okay? Here's hands, Yodim. But here's the word samek. Samek is a letter, but samek is also a word, to lay or lean, or, okay? That's very important for what we're going to see here. And you're going to ooh and you're going to ah. And I'm going to expect both of those. So here's, and Aaron shall lay, there's lay, samek. Now, you know the Aaronic blessing. Once a year they give this, the high priest in Israel, and everybody's gathered in the Kotel area. Oh. Yes. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. One thing I noticed right off the get-go, it's the Lord, the Lord, the Lord. There's three of them. This points to, again, to his Trinity, to complex unity, right? He didn't just say the Lord do all these things. He mentioned the Lord 3 times. I like that. May he, Aaronic blessing. And the high priest, God actually instructed in number 6, Moses, tell Aaron to give this blessing over the people. And whenever they give this blessing, they form the letter Shin with their hand. Shin stands for Shaddai, Almighty. And he does it with both hands. And he actually forms with his hand here a samek. And not only do his hands form a samek, but so do his arms. And so when he gives that blessing, he is like pushing, leaning that blessing onto the people, kind of like he was leaning and pushing the sins onto the goat. This is kind of the opposite of that. This is the good side, okay? Are you with me? Good. No, not yet. I don't want any premature oohs and ahs. Next. Oh, that's his next. Oh, thank you. Okay. Here is that blessing in the Hebrew. Okay. Yabareka. That barak, that's to bless. We talked about that last night, okay? And then here's Yahweh, Yud Hey Vav Hey, here it is again. Notice the blessing has 3 lines. In the first line, it's 1, 2, 3 words. Are you getting 3 words? Okay. In the second line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. In the third line, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. 7 words. So I go from 3 words to 5 words to 7 words. There's order, right? It's getting bigger, which God's blessing more. All right? And there's order to it, 3, 5, 7. Okay, next. Oh, I did want to point out that this just reminds you here, Samek means to lean or support. Its gematria value is 60. We mentioned that. And it's the 15th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. I didn't tell you that. Okay. All right, next. The number of words are 3, 5, and 7. And if you add them, you get 15, which is kind of cool, right? Because he's putting a samek when he puts that blessing on them. Next. Now, the number of letters in the verse. There are 15 letters in the first line. There are 20 letters in the second. And there are 25 letters in the third. And if you add up the number of letters in the blessing, you get... No, not yet. Jeez. Here. This is going to be the ooh-ah flag. When you see this go up, then you go ooh and ah. And not until. Jeez. Okay, are we all good with this? All right. Next. Oh. Now, in your hand, there's a hand, there are 27 bones in your hand. I didn't know that. I looked it up in the Wikipedia. And there's the map I got, or the picture. And next, and of course we have two hands, and there's 27 in each, right? And then we have arms. Let's go to the next one. In arms, we have 3 bones. This I actually remember from school. It was the radius, and the humerus, and the ulna. We know these 3, right? There's 1, 2, 3. So, there's that. Which add up to total 60 bones. So whenever you're making this, the priest is making this samek with his arms, he's actually making a samek with 60 bones, and he's leaning on and pushing that blessing onto the people with a giant samek. Isn't this better than church? Okay. What time? It's still a bit early, isn't it? 18. Yes. Now, I've got another cool thing that I can show you. It's going to take me 2 to 3 minutes to find it. It really wasn't part of this. So we talk amongst yourselves. Oh, question. All questions just in writing 3 weeks in advance, please. Yes. Yeah, that would be, what would it have been? Why would it?
Just that they're not the same letters.
Oh. Yeah, it's just...
Showing the difference between the letters visually.
Yeah, just so you don't get one... I think it was the het talk.
YouTube audience, we're doing a slight tech transition. Just stay with us. We got a little bit more to go.
Welcome back to the second and final third. This is what you were asking. And this is about, we're doing the letter het. Here's a het. And you just, if you're new to Hebrew, you have to realize that some of the letters look kind of alike. And so I made a slide just to show you that het is not hey, and het is not tav. Okay? So that's all.
I see the two that's hard to tell apart.
Dalet and Resh.
Yeah.
Those are really hard to tell.
Yep. And I've got a good Dalet Resh. Where's that talk? It's on that. It's in the same talk here. This talk that we're doing has what, 1,800 slides, and we're just picking out parts of them for the. Okay, so jump ahead till we get to Chakma. Little jump ahead music. Okay, go back. One. Oh, there it is. Okay, this is really cool. This is the word Chakma. It's the word for wisdom. It's a het, kaf, mem, hey. Good? Okay. And by the way, when I was in my early 20s, I may have heard the story prior to that, but this is when it actually kind of sunk in and did something to me. But whenever King Solomon, God came to Solomon and said, Solomon, I'm going to give you whatever you want. What do you want? And Solomon got to thinking, what do I want? Maybe money. Give me the the richest man in the world. And he said, no, that's not my answer. Wait, let me think. Power. If I was the most powerful man, I could get money. Yeah. Oh, no, that's not my answer. I'm just talking out loud. Then he's thinking, you know what? Maybe it's pleasure, wine, women, and song, and just a nice, happy-go-lucky life. No, I'm not officially answering that. And when he finally did answer, his answer impressed God so much that God gave him everything. And what did he answer? Give me wisdom and discernment. Okay? Wisdom is not something you can get in school. You can get knowledge and education and all that, but it is not wisdom. Wisdom only comes from God, and you have to ask for it, and he will pour it out. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to ask for it in my early 20s, and I'm going to ask for it often and see what happens. I'm still waiting. No, I think he comes through. And discernment, what's discernment? I heard somebody once say, discernment is not choosing between the right word and the wrong word. Discernment is choosing between the right word and the almost right word. So that's a good definition for discernment. Anyway, Chakma is wisdom. In Jeremiah 10:12, it says, it is he, God, who made the earth by his power, who established the world by his wisdom, and by his understanding he has stretched out the heavens. So, when God, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, he did that using his Chakma. We good? Okay. And here's that word Chakma. And we talked about gematria values, but we also have something called ordinate values. The ordinate value, remember how many letters are in the Hebrew alphabet? 22. The ordinate value is just where in the 22 does it appear? Tav is 22. That's its ordinate value, right?
So with Samek, you had 15 and 60. 60 was the gematria, but it's the 15th letter.
15th letter,
The
it's,
value is 15.
yeah, the ordinate value is order. The ordinate value of Samek is 15. The gematria was 60. Are we good? Okay. So just know that there's a difference between ordinate and gematria. Okay, next. Well, here are the ordinate values of Chakma. Het is the 8th letter. Kaf is the 11th letter. Mem is the 13th letter. And He is the 5th letter. No worries? Okay? Yeah, you can jump ahead because it's going to stay the same. And if you add up the ordinate values of wisdom, you get 37. Remember I told you he's got 37s hidden everywhere? Right? They're everywhere. Okay, so that's the ordinate value of wisdom. Next, let's look at the gematria value for wisdom. Gematria value is Het is 8, Kaf is 20, Mem is 40, He is 5. The gematria value adds up to 73. I mean, if he doesn't use 37, he'll use 73. It's just, is this funny? Okay. Next. Now, if you multiply 37 times 73, you get 2,701. Does that number ring a bell?
It's the gematria values and all the letters and the words in Genesis 1:1.
Exactly. And I hope I have a slide for that. That is impressive. Oh, rats. You got to click uninstall, and then you're going to have to go up in the corner and X out whatever is about to show up. There you go. Okay, now go to the next one. So here's Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If you put the gematria values in for that first verse, it comes out to 2701. And the verse said that he created the universe with his wisdom. And wisdom is 37 or 73, depending on which way you add it up. And you multiply them, you get 2701. Is that cool? Yes, I mean, he's just... Go to the next one just to see what's there. I haven't looked at this for a while. Oh, this is just a reminder with his wisdom. That was the verse. So... Oh, you know what? You know what they do is, if you take 7 and 3, you get 10. Then you take the digits of 10 and add them together. 1 and 0, 1. It all comes down to 1. God, 1. That's what they'll do with numbers, big numbers, and they add up the digits, and they'll get another, and they add up the digits.
And that happens with 37 and 73 and 2701. They would all do that.
Yeah.
Those three lead to 1.
Uh-huh.
The 3 and 1.
Yeah. But does it make sense for the non-math people? Yeah. So, what is the next slide? Does it add anything to this? Again, next. Yeah, I just put this in here a couple, maybe a month or two ago. But this word hakma, these two letters together spell koach, which is power. And these two letters, but don't click ahead, too late. Did you hear me click the stick? What did he say earlier? I didn't hear a stick. Mem-he. What's mem-he? Ma, which means what? So the word wisdom, hakma, is kind of like the power of what? And maybe that's implying or inferring that we need to ask. If you want ask questions, you know. Don't just sit there like a lump, you know. Yes, ask what? and you will obtain wisdom by asking. It's cool what he has hidden in his words numerically, and just tear the words apart, and this is neat. And for those who weren't here last night, we explained Ma. That's why they all knew it. Well, some of them knew it before. But remember when the Jews were wandering in the wilderness and they came out and there was this white stuff all over the ground. And they looked at it and they said, Ma, na, what is it? That's how you say, what is it in Hebrew? Ma, na. And God said, yes, that's what we're going to call it. We'll call it manna. What is it? So ma means what? Mm-hmm. Very cool.
If he'd asked for power, he would only been getting half of what he ended up.
Yes.
John was talking about asking God for wisdom. That's what James chapter 1 verse 5. If anyone lack wisdom, they can ask of God.
There you go. Ask and ye shall receive. And what's the best example of that whole asking for or asking for wisdom? And Solomon got it. And it's the famous story of the two women, and we're going to end with this. The two women, and they each had baby, and they were sleeping in the tent, and at night one of the babies died, and they didn't know. In the morning, the one woman said, oh no, my baby's dead. Well, wait a minute, that's not my baby. That's my baby. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. They're back and forth arguing whose baby it is, and nobody could. They went to the police, and the police didn't know. They went to the judges, and they didn't know. And someone said, take it to King Solomon. He's wise. Maybe he'll know whose baby is who. And the two women went to Solomon and said, whose baby's which? And Solomon said, okay, here's what we'll do. Bring me a sword. And bring that live baby right there. And take that sword and cut the baby in half. Give half to her and give half to her. And when I tell people in foreign countries who know nothing about the Bible, and I'll say, isn't that the best answer yet? And they'll go, no, that's horrible. I can't believe that's the stupidest answer. And then a minute later, they figure it out because the one woman said, yeah, cut the baby in half. And the mother said, no, give the baby to her. And Solomon said, that's the mother. So, wisdom comes with answers that on the surface seem crazy. But when you think about it, you go, oh yeah, that makes much more sense. So, all right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all here. Thank you for writing all this so that we could, what does it say? What did you say? That it is to the glory of God to conceal a matter, and it is the honor of Melachim, of kings, to seek it out. And thank you for just giving us the desire to seek out what you have hidden. And be with us tonight, tomorrow, bring us back, and thank you. And we ask and thank and praise you in Yeshua's name. Amen.
YouTube audience, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at 6 p.m.